here's Brody Brazil.
You know, as it relates to professional sports teams and stadium potential relocation issues, I don't know that the Arizona Diamondbacks are necessarily at the forefront of anything. They're on the radar, and they have been for quite some time. But now in the desert, we have some tension building about this specific building, formerly known as Bank One Ballpark, the Bob. Yeah, it's been Chase Field now for a lot of years, but because of its age and because of the lack of real improvements over the years, it's not necessarily a super old building that's going to crumble, but it does have some issues right now. The roof is leaky. The roof can't be operated when fans are in the stands. That caused actually a rainout this past preseason. And also the air conditioning can't keep up with the times. It's getting too hot for games. The AC basically is not serviceable as it's supposed to be anymore. Let me get into the big picture of exactly what's going on here. The Diamondbacks have their lease expiring at the end of the 2027 season, which I know still sounds far off, but the process and the timeline to do something new, build something somewhere else, even fix this or come to an agreement, like 2027, the end of that season is going to be here before you know it. As I mentioned before, this is not just an amenities issue. Like, the ballpark doesn't need the bells and whistles. It needs some of the fundamentals and literally foundations, like the roof. It's inoperable when fans are in the stands. So they had an exhibition game back in March. It started raining. The problem is when it started raining, fans were already in the seats, and because of whatever technical issue, they can't open and shut the roof anymore when there's fans there. Maybe it's a safety issue. I'm not sure of the specifics, but they had to stop the game and have a rainout in a retractable roof stadium because they couldn't shut the roof with fans in the stands. That's kind of a problem, right? That's a very limiting factor. There's also the air conditioning issue, which in the desert you certainly need, and if it's not capable anymore up to the standards it should be, that's going to make it awfully uncomfortable for fans to go to a game indoors in the desert in 110 plus degree weather and not have the proper air conditioning. So the infrastructure is starting to get past the lifespan of the building. It's not to say that the building needs to be replaced, but a lot of things, pipes and wiring and networking and all that stuff, the guts basically of the building, they need an upgrade because overall this is now actually one of the older ballparks in the National League. It's only from the 90s. And again, I hate to sound and make this feel like this is some old ballpark and it should have been replaced decades ago. It's not that. Sometimes these ballparks need a little TLC. They need a little upgrade so that they can last another 20 to 30 years. But therein lies the question, how do we get that taken care of? Who takes care of that? This is also noteworthy. There was a 2018 lawsuit which made the team now responsible for repairs and upgrades at Chase Field. Well, if things haven't happened and the team is legally responsible for those things, we understand why the city and Maricopa County are like, that's yours to deal with. The lawsuit says so. But now also the team wants to build a ballpark village. Of course they do, surrounding Chase Field. It's downtown Phoenix, which if you've ever been to the Valley, you know may not be the most optimal spot for a baseball stadium. Sure, kind of centrally located, but it's not where the entertainment is anymore. In the Phoenix metro area, it's in places like Tempe and Scottsdale, and so downtown Phoenix is kind of like a meh. It's a mid situation, if I could speak to the kids. So they're trying to do something, either fix this up, build something around it, make it more of a thing, or maybe figure something else out. Here's the very latest from 12 News, the NBC affiliate in Phoenix. The team's lease expires in 2027, and they have been negotiating with Maricopa County, which owns Chase Field, about a lease extension. At odds is the length of the new lease and money for much-needed renovations. The team said they are willing to put in a lot of money to fix Chase Field, but were recently given a counteroffer from an earlier proposal requiring a 50-year lease and the team to commit to $150 million for stadium maintenance. Now, I've also heard that number being reported as closer to $200 million, but the 50-year lease part of it, 30 is acceptable, right? Like 30 is what you would do on a home mortgage. There's a lot of non-relocation agreements for teams and stadiums that are 30 years. 30 years, for whatever reason, seems like an agreeable number for both sides. But 50 years, that kind of sets the tone of something different. And it's hard to commit to 50 years if you really don't have that structure of how are we going to keep this place functioning and updated. Obviously, they don't even have that right now. The team responded. They're not happy. Obviously, quote, "We found this letter extremely offensive, especially since we have come to the table with hundreds of millions in resources to help renovate a ballpark we do not own, while the county has offered no dollars at all. We have tried to work in a collaborative fashion and in true teamwork with a broad coalition of supporters here in Phoenix. All along, we have done our part by investing millions into repairing this aging ballpark while receiving little to no assistance at all. The truth and fairness matter here, and bizarre attacks like this do not represent the way our partners should do business." Wow. "It is clear for all to see that this was a bomb-throwing tactic." It's very specific. "From a chairman who lost his primary and 2 other outgoing members who will not be part of future talks." Now it's getting really spicy. "To ask us to sign a 50-year lease renewal on a stadium we do not own when we are the only party bringing real dollars to the table is simply not a serious or logical proposal. We will continue to seek a solution and thank the state and city for continuing to work," end quote. Again, that was an official statement from the team. Enter in now, right? So if they can't get this done, what's that external threat? It's the state of Utah. Now, let me just be clear. Think about hockey for a second. The Arizona Coyotes were just lost to Salt Lake City. And the way the NHL did it was tried to let them go to a temporary home. They did that for 2 years on the campus of Arizona State. It didn't work out for the Coyotes. So the NHL came in and said, "This isn't happening. You're having arena issues. You've already left Glendale. You can't secure a new home. We're going to buy your team from you. We're going to move them to Salt Lake. We'll give you an expansion team if you can produce a new stadium arena in the next 5 years." The prior owner of the Coyotes, he's already backed out of that conversation and even of that option. So in the meantime, no professional hockey in Arizona. So that is still kind of an open wound for what happened with the Coyotes. But it all happened because Utah cleared $900 million of public funding to fix up Delta Center so that a hockey team could easily migrate north to Salt Lake City. Utah also has, right now, so let me go back to this, $900 million set for a baseball stadium ready to go. They've got the State Fair Park there. They want to put it right by the river. They literally have $900 million of public money for the state of Utah approved for a Major League Baseball team. So a while back, Derrick Hall, president and CEO of the Diamondbacks, said this, quote, about the Coyotes' departure and Utah. "It woke a lot of people up and showed just how easily a team can be lured away. I can never see us leaving the area. But if there is a market out there that's very aggressive, $900 million, you never know what extent they'll go to acquire a team." End quote. So it's not necessarily a threat, but it is pointing things out. And then there's also this on the team's perspective of what they're trying to do at the site, what they're trying to do around Chase Field. Quote, "When you see the new ballparks," again, this is from Derrick Hall, "it's office spaces and hotels and restaurants, something that could benefit whether we're downtown or elsewhere. Where are those opportunities for us? That's another thing we're discussing internally because we would love to create 365 days a year of activation around the ballpark. And I've made videos on ballpark villages and now how every team wants that surrounding their stadium or arena. It's either the entertainment district of an arena or a ballpark village for a Major League Baseball stadium. And activation is a key word. I'm going to start using that one too because that's definitely a buzzword that teams are talking about. They want activation 365 days a year. I don't blame them for this. But if that's not possible, that shouldn't be the end-all be-all of whether Chase Field gets fixed up or if the Arizona Coyotes stay or move. This should not be the deciding factor of the Arizona Diamondbacks' future in the Valley. So here are my takeaways. Number one, beginning with this, Utah and that $900 million for a baseball stadium, they're going to be a player in everything. That money is just sitting there being interesting. And whether it's the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Athletics of Sacramento and not yet Las Vegas, or the Chicago White Sox who don't have a stadium deal at the 78. They'd sure like to go to the South Loop, but what if they can't? So Utah's just going to sit there and go, we're here. We've got the money. We've got the public funding that baseball loves. There'll be a player in this. And it obviously stings even more because Salt Lake City just took one of Phoenix's main pro sports teams. Yes, Chase Field is the fourth oldest National League ballpark, and it's also, like I said, in a bad location. I don't know if I should say bad. It's not in an optimal location. And there's also this, when you look at Arizona, you look at the Valley, and where the Coyotes were trying to build before, that plot of land on North Scottsdale Road and Loop 101, there's not a lot of good places left. I know we all think like, oh, Arizona, tons of space, desert floor, they can just build it anywhere. But if you're really talking about doing something right in the proper location, there's not a lot of proper locations left. The Valley has developed so greatly that they're kind of running out of optimal room in those good places. But the last thing I'll end on here is that 2028, in my perspective, I mean, the end of 27, the start of 28, that's not enough time like for the Diamondbacks to move, or if they were really going to build something new on their own. Fixing things up, yeah, that's enough time, a couple years to get all this hashed out and squared away. But if their threat really is, well, we're going to leave after 27, I mean, you should have already broke ground on something or someplace new. Even in Utah, for example. I mean, we're at the end of the 2024 baseball season here, 25 and 26, that's not enough time to build a stadium. Well, 25, 26, by the end of maybe 3 years, but this would have to happen really quick. So the lease running out at the end of 27, I guess what I'm saying is this doesn't offer up a large enough window for either side to really start doing something extreme. They need to figure out the short term before they can ultimately get to the long game. So again, of all the teams on the radar of stadium issues and relocation situations, I don't know if people really think about the Diamondbacks, but keep an eye on this. It didn't just start. This has been going on now for the last 9 to 12 months. But I would say the back and forth that we saw within the last week, the tension is building surrounding this building in downtown Phoenix. You made it here to the end of this video. I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That helps me in this video and this channel. I would like that. But I would love it even more if you just take one quick second, go down there right now, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. That way I definitely get to see you back here next time.